This is the Ford Maverick Lariat with the Tremor package. It's got the Terrain exterior paint. You're going to find LED headlamps inside of the ride, and that nice orange highlight follows through the middle of the grille. No front-facing camera, unfortunately, but the 2025 model will have a full 360 camera. There's some tow hooks in the front. Plastic in the front there, so approach angle is going to be a little bit tricky as we go off-road, but it's got all of the necessary underbody protection. And since this is the Tremor, you've got 17-inch wheels that are dark with a nice orange pocket, different suspension, four-wheel drive lock, electronic locking rear differential as well. But I'll highlight all of that as we go off-road. The big difference between the 24 and the 2025, the Tremor is going to be its own standalone package. It's essentially a Lariat anyways, but there are big changes to the 25 I'll point out on the inside. Like I said, this is a 24. You've got decals all the way across. The Maverick, regardless of the trim, regular 87 octane. You'll obviously get better fuel economy if you look at the hybrid version of the truck, but still, looking at the Tremor version, you still get pretty good economy. I was averaging like 8.2-ish liters per 100 in stop and go traffic when I picked it up. There's a Tremor badge along the side, Tremor badge along the back, blacked out Ford logo with a backup camera and reverse sensing system. Towing inside of the Tremor is possible. You're maxing out at 2,000 pound towing capacity. There is the option for the 4K tow pack. You just can't get that with the Tremor package. So if you wanted more towing, you're going to have to go without the Tremor pack. You'll find the spare tire underneath. Payload inside of the Maverick technically maxes out at 1,500 pounds. But inside of the Tremor, you're maxing out at 1,200 pounds, but it's also less. So if we look along the yellow door sticker, you can see there, you're maxing out at 1,148 pounds for your payload. And this is where there's going to be a difference between the 24 and then the 2025 models. There's going to be a new digital cluster screen available, and then the infotainment system will be different as well. So this one's Sync 3. Inside of the XL, XLT, it's the regular Sync system. This one has factory nav. The screen in the lower trims doesn't. But you can still hook up through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze if you want to. That's done through a USB connection. The next generation system instead is going to be wireless. So if you want better technology, honestly wait for the 25s because you'll have wireless CarPlay capabilities, a more robust system in my opinion. And then that fully digital cluster screen will look good. And then as I mentioned, there's the option for a full 360 camera. Second row of the Maverick, straightforward. You've got pockets behind both the driver and the passenger side. There's a regular wall plug, so 400 watt, a few USB power points. Seats are straightforward. There are anchor points. Top tethers up there as well. Cup holders built into the seats. Overhead there's a light, handle, and a hook. And then the seats, you can lift up to show off a little bit of extra storage. The Maverick is equipped with an available all-wheel drive system, but when you get into the Tremor trim level, like what we're looking at here, it's going to have an advanced system. So it's a twin clutch rear differential. So unlike traditional all-wheel drive, where it distributes torque evenly between the front and the rear axles, the twin clutch setup in the Tremor also is going to actively send torque between each of the rear wheels. So each of the rear wheels has its own electronically controlled clutch. When you look at the Maverick trim level, there are a series, or the Tremor trim I should say, a series of additional modes. So you've got your normal tow haul slippery, but then there's mud ruts along with sand. Now you can't use all of these drive modes at high speed. It is going to be a lower speed, especially when you look at that sand mode. So it's not going to be a Baja like what you're going to find inside of the Bronco Raptor, the F-150 Raptor, whatever the case may be. But it still is solid traction all around. And when you're in those modes, it's going to play with options like your traction stability control. On top of that, you've got your four-wheel drive lock. But with the four-wheel drive lock, like what we're going to find inside of the Maverick Tremor or the Bronco Sport Badlands, it's essentially going to be a 50-50 power distribution, which is perfect for off-road situations like this because it means that each axle is getting 50% of the power. It's great for low speed situations. It's not so good for high speed situations. So you really only want to use the 4-wheel drive lock in low speed situations like what we're looking at here. Off-road, love it. Lots of puddles, even better. And they're not too deep as well, which is perfect. I mean, the Maverick doesn't really have a high ground clearance. And it's not like you're going to be doing some crazy water fording inside of this ride. Ooh, go this way. But even still, it handles it nicely. Yeah. Oh, this mud. Love it. Mud Ruts mode is loving it right now. There also is the rear differential lock. And one of the big benefits there is that it's going to force each rear wheel, to spin at the exact same time. So the benefit there is it's going to help it with traction, because otherwise the intelligent all-wheel drive system, it might shoot all the power out to one wheel. But with this system, it's going to divert 50% of that power for the rear axle to each wheel automatically. Look at this. Oh, like a boss. Oh, yeah. The underbody protection inside of the Maverick Tremor is pretty good. It's nothing crazy, but it is beneficial, especially getting into driving situations like this. One thing that I wish that this had, though, trail turn assist, like what you're going to find inside of the Bronco. So that trail turn assist locks up the innermost rear wheel, so it makes getting around obstacles and doing quick turns and things like that way better in comparison. But still, that's pretty solid. You can also change out the drive modes on the fly, so you can switch out to whatever mode as necessary just based off of your driving conditions. So we're a little bit more just gravel loose conditions instead, so okay going a little bit faster. But when you get into more challenging terrain, that's where some of the other drive modes are really going to come into play and when they're really going to shine. There is technically a trail control here too. So there's the trail speed. So if I wanted to, I could set the trail speed at something nice and low. And one of the big benefits there is that the car is going to hold onto that speed at a low amount. So rather than like the traditional adaptive cruise control, it only works at a higher speed. With this, it's going to let the adaptive cruise control run at a lower speed. So we can really focus on the technical side of driving here as necessary. The Maverick Tremor has a 2-liter turbocharged engine, 250 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of torque. And while there's no dedicated sport mode, this truck is a blast on regular city streets. Back up to highway speed. 100. It's got some balls. I'll give it that. Especially just regular city streets. That is fairly solid performance. No complaints here whatsoever.